Hi, Siri. I'm not sure if you've turned on your audio yet. It says that it's connecting. So let me know when you're connected.
Hi, everyone.
Hi. You're the first one in.
Yeah.
I'm still waiting for my colleague to join me as well, but you're right on time. I saw that you've added a couple of questions already.
Yeah, I hope it's not really stupid. I'm kind of new in
No,
Grafana.
definitely not. So let me see if I can read it just real quick.
Hello, guys.
Hey, Mikhail. Hey, how are you doing?
Good, good. Happy New Year.
Yeah, you too.
Yeah, you too. Hi.
So Sari here has asked in the, so for those of you who are just logging in, we do have a document with the agenda, which there is no real agenda today other than, being here for you to answer any questions you have regarding plugins. And we will be here for a full hour. And you can drop out, you can come back if you want to try something out, and come back and see, ask follow-up questions if you'd like. So we do have a few Grafanistas in this call with us. We have myself, we have Brian Gann. I see we have Daniel Lee and Diana Payton as well. So
yeah,
I'll
and I don't know how much of an agenda you have, but I've been working on docs for a new plugin feature that is coming with 7.4. That's kind of exciting.
Oh, cool.
That basically, you know how there are kind of cheat sheets for some of the data sources in Explore. First of all, every data source that has cheat sheets in Explore is now going to have them accessible in the panels. And that also means that you can add a cheat sheet for your data source. There is, I believe it's called Query Support Help in the developer plugin documents now. And so, yeah, you can add, all sorts of notes and, pre-built queries and any other gotchas and stuff for your personal plugin into your data source plugin.
Awesome. Do you have a link you can share?
Yes, I was just hunting for that. Sorry.
Yeah. Okay. So if you do have a question, a plugin related question, or if we run out of them, other Grafana related questions as well, please add it to the agenda. I will, go through the questions in the list here. And, if we run out of questions there, just, throw one out there and we'll get to it. So the first question, thank you, Diana. The first question is it possible to somehow access secure JSON data to be able to send, for example, API keys in the body of the request using backend srv.fetch? And I don't believe you send, Brian, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't believe you're sending the secure JSON data in the fetch request. You're muted.
Of course I was. Is this for a data source with a backend?
Without backend.
Does not have a backend?
Yeah.
I have not tried it without a backend, but yes, you can access the secure JSON data, actual decoded.
The problem is that I can decode it only with the Go plugin, so with the Go backend. Or is it possible to do it like with TypeScript?
Are you sure, Brian, it's possible to do with TypeScript? I think the whole point is that you shouldn't be able to.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
No. Yeah,
So-
I haven't.
Yeah.
I've only done it with the back end, not with the front end. Sorry.
Yeah, you don't have accessing to the secret and stuff on the front end. And that's the whole point, that you don't want to be able to decrypt passwords on the front end. It's once it's saved on the front end, then that's it. You can't ever decrypt it on the front end again.
Yeah, so I thought if it maybe there's some construct that you can use keys to give the backend knows that I want that key that I've saved in my config editor, that I want this key to be sent using proxy. So I tried to use this proxy, API proxy from Grafana, this routes settings, but there's no body in this kind of logic. So I can only add parameters and headers, but I cannot use body to send API keys or password or something that's saved on backend.
So you say you're trying to put the password into the API key.
Yeah.
Is it a header or is it in the body?
It is in the body. So I can send it hard coded, so it works. But I can see also password and user information, and also I cannot dynamically change it in config editor.
Yes, it's the point. It is like a security flaw if you were able to access it from your JavaScript code. So if you decrypted the password and added it into your body, then basically anybody using your plugin can see the decrypted password. But I am thinking, Brian, this with the routes and the proxy should be. Is it possible to add to the body? That is maybe where you would write a backend plugin, I suppose.
So, yeah, I don't think you can edit the body with routes. Only add headers.
Yeah. If you give me 1 minute, I'm just going to look at dig into some plugins I've written and see if I've ever done anything similar. But why are you sending the password in the body? That seems strange. What's the API that takes a password in the body?
So I have APIs that use basic authorization and also user client ID and client secret. So I done it on my front end and then save it as a encrypted basic header. And then I get it in roles, this Grafana roles. So a header, name, yeah, and the problem is that I need to get my IP, to get my data from IP, I need also to give my user and password. And it is not possible to do it with roles because there is no field like body to write point secure JSON data, point password, for example.
Yeah.
So
I was just wondering about the API that you're trying to connect. Why it seems unusual that it takes it in the body, but I suppose you don't have control over that, do you?
Just like we have authorization server, like out to point null, and then we need we have some pet proxy. That's why we need one more access key. And I cannot use this authorization, the out that already implemented in with routes API proxy, because I need one more header, and so it's like two requests. So I need two requests to do it. First one is client secret, client ID, and grant. Also, I should add, and then I get this access token, and with access token I can get my data from API, something like that.
Okay. There is some like access token stuff built into the routes, but it's all done with headers.
Yeah, because we have like x minus out minus token header, and I need to add this header to like in
Yeah, there is the. Is this an OAuth endpoint?
Yeah.
Not OAuth. It is. Okay, but then there
It
is a support for that. Then I will send you an example. So that is supported. There is a field called token auth on the routes, and we have a documentation for this, I think.
Yep.
Yeah, I tried, but after that I need to add one more header as it named like x out token, and then I need to input there this access token without barrier, without any other refresh tokens and so on.
So you're saying that the one
it's
that
like
is there does
manually added in our web proxy.
Okay, so you need to. Okay,
I
so
need one more header, and I need this data that I get from out credentials. Yeah, I need this access token to input in my custom header.
Yeah, unfortunately, this sounds like you have to build a backend. This is like a one of the reasons to write like a backend, like a Go backend for your plugin is just with custom authentication. It's like two main reasons, and one is custom authentication, and the other one is alerting. If you want alerting support in Grafana, then it has to have a backend. I don't know, unless there's some way to wrangle our route system. I don't know, Marcus or Brian, any thoughts? So the token auth one that Marcus linked there in the chat, like everything happens on the back end. So you can't get access to the token from the front end afterwards. It's all done sort of invisibly on the back end.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't see a way of doing it.
But if you have a backend plugin, you can access the decrypted value.
But then I should write all my code in Go, so I cannot use TypeScript as a logic for queries.
No, so the front end code for when you're using a backend plugin is very minimal. So most of the querying logic happens in the backend, and then you forward that to the TypeScript code. So the TypeScript components is very minimal.
Yeah, that is my point, because I'm not really the guy that write code in Go, so I need to understand how Go is working, and then maybe. That's why I asked if it possible, or is it possible to make like a body in a P proxy that Grafana implemented, and then you can something like this. I send it in chat. So we have path, we have URL, and then we have something like body, and in body you can get your password. Then you do not need any kind of Go backend plugins.
There would be one way I could think of doing it, but you still need a Go backend, but it would be very, very minimal. You could write a Go backend that uses resources, and you can have an arbitrary payload come back from the backend that you process in TypeScript. So instead of calling query to the backend, you're calling get resource, and that's where you do your query to your custom API with all the headers and everything decrypted, and you just send that raw payload back as whatever is JSON or whatever content. It could just be CSVs or any raw data format back to your TypeScript, and then process it. in the front end. That'd be a pretty simple backend to do. We have some examples of using resources. And that would have access to the secure JSON data.
Do you have some snippets how it could be implemented? Maybe documentation also?
Yeah, we don't have documentation for the resources yet, but if Brian doesn't have it, I can give you an example of how you could add a resource.
I don't have one offhand. I think mostly the enterprise plugins use that.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's a great idea, but it is an idea.
So I'll send you a link here. It's to an app plugin, but it's the same thing. So if you're looking at that line that I sent you, I recommend that you still go through the tutorial for backend plugins so you understand the rest of the code. But the difference here, as Brian pointed out, is that instead of registering a handler for your queries, you only register a resource handler, and that becomes sort of as a web server on the backend side that you can query for any endpoint.
Oh, cool. That's something that I want to have.
Yeah, I figured. So if you look in the same directory as the file that I sent you, there is a server.go where you can see how you can write the handlers for it. Hopefully, it shouldn't be too much Go code, but yes, a little Go code is required.
Nice. Thanks.
Yeah, cool. So do you wanna do your next question, or do you feel like you've gotten the answer you were looking for?
Yeah, it's another one is a little bit. It's about subscriptions. So if it's possible, if so, I have, for example, a web server with a context information, and if it's possible that Grafana subscribe on this service or web server and get asynchronously notifications if something changed or something's happened there, and then shows me the data that
So my first instinct is a streaming backend or a streaming data source where you can set up, depending on where you want to subscribe to the data from. If it's another API that has support for WebSockets, you can hook up a WebSocket and then just stream the data from there. And then the panel will update as the new data comes in. But it depends on where you get the data from. Alternatively, you could write a backend again. If you have let's say that you have something like a message bus or something like that doesn't support an HTTP API, for example, then you would want something like a backend service or a backend plugin. So I guess the question to you then is, what type of API does the service have?
It's like REST. So I do some subscription on my web server, and I give the URL from Grafana, and then if something happens, then this web server pushes the notification.
So it's like so it's a webhook, basically.
Webhook, yeah, it's webhook.
I think I think you could use the resources again for this, because I think assuming that you have the permission for accessing the resource endpoint for that plugin, you could implement a post endpoint for it. Does that sound reasonable, Daniel and Brian? I think that could work. Where you create a resource handler that listens to a post request, and then in your plugin settings, when you register your plugin in that service, you give the URL to your resource endpoint.
Yeah. So that is Grafana.
Yeah.
So URL to Grafana.
But the second part of it is to get Grafana to asynchronously update.
Yeah.
And that would be I think. Do we have Daniel or Brian? Do you know if we've implemented circular data frames in the backend? I haven't heard about it yet.
I haven't either.
Okay. So in the front end, there is a specific data frame that is like circular. So if you add something to the end, it kind of pushes, so it keeps a buffer, and it's very useful if you have something like a streaming data source. But I'm not sure that we have that in the backend. So I'm not sure if you can get the as async refresh from a backend plugin at this point. It's definitely something that we want to support at some point, but I'm not sure if we got it right now. But
I know you could do a streaming response over a resource also.
Oh, you can?
Yeah, you can. That came out in 7.1, I think.
That could be interesting. Do you have any examples of that?
None that anybody wanted me to share.
Brian, are you talking about the thing that Ryan was calling Grafana Live?
Sort of.
Okay, because there's an example of that in the 7.4 play that I dashboard that I linked in the agenda. Let's see if I can find it.
As far as I know, that's like alpha, though. I'm not sure that is even exported yet. Is it?
It's live, yeah. It's
okay.
just kind of buried in the test data DB thing. Let me get that. Come on.
So yeah, it ended up being a backend plugin with some work.
Yeah, the top panel there is an example of a live stream.
But the question is whether that API has been exposed in the Grafana plugin APIs. I'm not sure it has yet. It might be an internal. It's something that we have internally. Know. Yeah. Let me see.
And I was looking just with live panel. It's using this time series new panel, right? Which is in beta right now. When it's going to be out of the beta, so we can actually use it?
Probably 8.0 is what I'm hearing.
8.0, okay.
There's a lot of streaming work going on, so yeah, I think before all the bits come together, it'll probably be 8.0 in May.
Okay. So in 7.4, it's going to be better, right? But we still can try to use it.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, I'll try it. Actually, with streaming, the way how it's done right now in Grafana, it's you can request the data from a backend data source and just show it on the panel. But for some of my panels, which we are doing for Redis, it's actually because the backend is a stateless backend data source. So when you want to preserve some data from a first query and then show additional data on the second query, right? Using this previous data, you have to do it on the front end, which is why we just did set timeouts on the front end. and do our own kind of streaming situation and show the data with the custom panels on a graph or on in the table.
I actually don't know enough about this, so I suppose Ryan, who's the guy who's working on the streaming, he has a lot planned for 8.0. I'm not sure exactly what's going to make it 8.0. So that could be something we could get him to talk about as maybe one of these meetings about the plans going forward there.
It would be great if we can have Ryan on the next call.
I'm gonna check if he's even available. Right now.
I have to drop, but nice to talk to you all.
Ready?
Glad to have you here.
Is there any plans to add additional documentation for Grafana plugins developer, like how to work with panels or tables? Because every time when you do something custom, it means like you do reverse engineering, go for the Grafana code and just hacking it.
So, sorry, what kind of documentation would you like to see? Like how to work with panels and?
Yeah, with the panels graphs. I mean, when you create a panel, right, you want to put your components on it, right? The graph, for example, or the new time series, you have a table. So what we did, actually, something I was talking before, we use a backend data source. We get one data once, then after a period of time, we get the second data, third data, then we aggregate it, and I wanted to show it on the graph. So we had a really hard time to understand, oh, we need to put it y-axis to display this data. And then we put how we do the legend. So we added the legend. Okay, that's great in the list. After that, we see on our axis, in y-axis, we see the numbers, but I don't see milliseconds there. So I'm not sure if my developer actually find a way how to display milliseconds, but so it's like nowhere.
Just to clarify, you're using the panel or the graph component in the Grafana UI, right? Yeah.
Yes, the one you're going to rewrite.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
And so from what I know, that graph component that you're using, it's kind of static and limited. And I mean, that's the big part of the new graph panel, is to make it into a reusable component. So we are very much aware of that limitation. I'm not sure documentation will help you here, because I think that the component is just not there yet.
So when it's going to be the new one available?
Well, what I've heard is 8.0, but that might be subject to change depending on their development.
Is it more of like what's available to the metrics panel controller? Is that documentation is sparse, or because that's kind of like what are the things that come with the class that you're extending, or in React something that you're inheriting?
So yes, we create these React components based on the graph, and then we use a legend XY component. This is the one, I think. Let me see what we eventually used. Graph. And at the same time, we use graph. We use graph with legend, and we provided. We created access object. I mean, it's all open source. I can probably share it. Just one. So this is the way how we do that. We create these components with access, labels, visible, timeframes, values, and use the graph with legend. We specified units in a couple of places, but still it's not displaying it properly, or it's really hard to navigate with this code to display milliseconds on the graph. If you know how it all works. But I can maybe open the issue.
I think that's the best. I haven't personally used the graph component at all, but we can definitely forward it to the team. But even better, open that issue, and I can send it to the people interested.
Okay.
Cool. See if it's. So there's no questions here in the agenda, but yeah, feel free to shoot.
Do you have an ATA for 7.4? When it's going to be out of beta?
I think we're working on the beta right now, aren't we? That means that it's gonna be a few more days, weeks, and before the stable lands.
Usually beta's a minimum of a week.
Yeah.
Sometimes there's a beta 2, depending on results, but it could be up to 2 weeks.
Are we talking about the 7.4 beta?
Yeah.
Yes.
It is currently scheduled to end February 4th. That's when the stable is due.
Thank you.
So subject to change, but that's the plan.
And then it's going to be 8.0 in March?
May-ish.
May.
I'm seeing a Jennifer in here. Did you have a question or just here out of curiosity?
Hey, yeah, nice to meet everyone. Yeah, I'm new to Grafana, product manager. We'll be working with the Backend enterprise team. So I just wanted to drop in a little bit and kind of see how things worked.
Cool. Well, happy you're here.
Excited to be here too. Thanks. Say hi.
Yeah, these calls, they you know, each one of them are a bit different. Depends on what we have to share and what the community has to share. We've done some show and tells. We've done some more, you know, straight up presentations when we have something that people might be interested of.
Great.
So one interesting thing that I found out about just a couple of hours ago is the frame meta in the plugin APIs. I'm not sure, Mikhail, did you know about it? Or maybe I'm just slow to the...
What is it?
It's see if I can get it. I was hoping to look into it a little today. It's a meta property on data frames that can provide a little extra debugging information for users, statistics and, you know, output. Yeah, I just learned about it, so I'm kind of curious about it. But let's see if I can find the link that was sent to me.
If you can show what you're talking about.
Yeah. I'm on it. So I'm gonna send you a link here. So this was that was just highlighted or sent to me. So there's on the frame there is a field called meta, and I I've been told that if you supply the frame meta, then you get some additional nice features, you know, for just seeing things like performance statistics on the data returned, and for example, what's the preferred visualization. So if you have a let's say that you have a data source that returns a data frame, you could pass a hint to the explore mode on how you want it to be presented. So you could pass a visualization type, for example. So you can hint, give a hint to explore on whether you want to visualize this as a graph, table, or logs, for example. And apparently you can set some kind of hierarchy here as well that hopefully is used for some kind of debugging purposes.
Yeah, we're using this in the enterprise plugins.
Yeah. Do you have it? I'm kind of reading this out loud as I as I look at it. Maybe you have some more information.
It's exactly like you said. You can being able to specify a preferred, you know, a default view of the data.
Yeah.
Which is really useful for the visualization that you get you automatically get switched to when you create a panel with that data source.
Yeah.
Is it for field configuration used as well, or is it separate?
Yeah, so it's well, let's see, with the field, no, for the field configuration could be part of the column
frame, right?
Yeah, on the frame. So if you wanted to set units, you could send that along with the metadata for the frame.
Right. Is that in the custom field, or?
I have to find an example.
Oh, okay. I don't know, since we don't have any questions, might as well learn a little bit together. So it does have a custom property here that I'm very curious about. Data source specific values, and it's just an interface. So I'm very curious about that one.
Right. Yes, I see there is a preferred visualization type and executed query string. By the way, if you have a custom panel, can you update property of the data source from the panel?
No,
I don't think you can.
On the init. No,
well, let's pass a question back to you. Like, why would you want to?
I have some specific panels which want to do specific task from my data source. So the way how I do that, well, normally when you have your data source, right, it's return your table or graph and you display it with your panel. I have a special panel which have to execute specific queries from the data source. So this is why instead of a user who have to put the panel, have to configure the data source the way I need, put the right command there. I just want, when you use a panel has a mount event, right? And on this mount event, I want to define my data source, all the properties there, if it makes sense. So you can override them on your panel, have the text boxes, right? And then when you do the query from the code itself, you can use what you override in the text boxes. But in the query editor, it will be great to actually set it like a small usability feature. Is it clear?
No, I admit I'm struggling a little bit. Do you have an example of?
Yes, I do.
Sure.
See if it works. It's probably very specific, but let me try to demonstrate.
Well, looking at code always helps, for me at least.
Second. You see my Grafana, right?
Yep.
So what we do, let me start from the beginning. So I have multiple panels biggest keys panels, CLI and latency. So for the latency panel, I have a specific query in my on my mind, which I'm using for backend data source. So I don't actually feel that. And data and panel itself knows what kind of data it should get and execute from query.
I see.
And this was it said that I can do graph and it shows me the axis, the numbers, but I don't know that's milliseconds actually. This is something we have to fix still. Same with another panel. I have my panel and it's kind of do the scanning process of the keys in the database. So to make it work, actually, I have to choose radius, then I have to use the scan command, and there are multiple parameters I have to specify. And then when I do that, I can do like a start scanning. So
I see. Okay, so you want to be able to like select from presets, possibly in the panel, and that will configure the query editor for you.
Yes, one the way. Another way, I choose the panel, and then it's automatically can define my data source or edit or override it. It will be great.
Yeah, I don't have an answer for you right off the bat, but I will write this down because I'm kind of curious as well.
Right, because if you create these special panels, which is designed to for specific task, it's not like a general panels you have, right? Then they may need something special extra from your data source.
I mean, I know that you can access the data source from the panel, but I'm not sure if you can update the properties.
Yes, you can access it. You can override it when you do your own query. But if you can actually define it and save it, it would be great.
Yeah. I'm going to write this down right away.
I'm just curious, just to follow up there. So you're saying the idea is like this panel would only work with one specific type of data source?
Yeah, that's correct. So it's like an enhanced functionality I want to implement in the app, which we are building. So we have a data source, we have this application plugin, and it's provided with special panels, which I can put on my dashboards, right? And they do specific tasks. Enhanced functionality of Grafana. And we are working actually on a very cool PR for SDK Go. Maybe you saw that or not. When your backend data sources, they are blocking sometimes. So when you have multiple data sources of the same kind, and one of them timeouting for some reason, it's blocking other data sources of this type. This is the way how it works. So now one of my developers, he submitted PR request when it uses special caching technology in Mutex. So one data source of the same type will be independent of another one. Because it was a big problem that you have, in my case, a Redis data source and one of the databases, it just timeouted. It's not available, right? And all data sources timeout. So it's applicable for the data source as well.
Well, that certainly sounds helpful, I have to admit.
Right, because one data source should not be affecting other data sources.
Yeah.
Kind of curious to look that up. So it was an open PR right now?
Yes. Actually, I posted about in plugins.
Oh, did you? Did I miss that?
Pretty cool.
Oh yeah, now I see it. Oh, and Marcus answered as well. Right. Oh, gotcha. So he's on it. He's on it.
Right. How instance manager manage data source instance caching. They get back and forth, adding some some changes and tests, the way how we should probably test it because it changed behavior of the data sources. But I'm excited if it's going to be done.
It certainly sounds like something we should prioritize.
Sure. Because I think it's all fixed now. All the comments.
Yeah. Well, I'll leave that to Marcus. It seems like he's on that already.
Do you have any adaptation metrics of a Grafana? How many users still use version 6? Who is migrated to version 7, 7.3? Because this is always, right now, in my case, in Redis data source, I have a limit of version 7.2, because this is where I have variables, which is available, right, in data source. But if I want to use live streaming, which is available in version 7.4, I have to say this is the version I need. So the next version of data source is going to be limited to these users, and not everybody wants to move there.
So you would like to be able to see how many users will be impacted by a change, basically.
Right.
Yeah.
I know that many users actually upgrade as fast as they can when the version is available, but still some of them in a production environment, same in Redis, we use version 7.2 still in some places, 7.1.
Yeah. I know that we have some of this information, so I wonder how we can best, make that available. Because I hear you. Because even in my own plugins, I've been thinking, how should I move to this new API, because it's only available in the absolute latest minor version, and that's probably gonna break it for a lot of users. So I agree that it would be helpful to just get us some indication of the users I'm targeting with this release. Is it worth it? And should I, because sometimes it's actually worth providing some form of backwards compatibility. So you have like a fallback. So I know that in 7.4, I believe there is a new API for calculating min and max for fields, and it's a very helpful function, but it will only be available to users 7.4 and on, and that means that you can't just update your plugin overnight to make use of that. You need to have some kind of fallback for users that don't have that, and then maybe have some indication of when you can drop that fallback. So yeah, I definitely see the use case.
Right, especially for enterprise users. No, some of them still haven't updated to version 7.
Yeah, for sure. This is great, by the way. I'm writing all this down.
Thank you.
I can't promise any hard, fast answers, but it's definitely something that we'll look into.
Maybe you can share it in the blog.
Yeah.
Everyone.
Yeah, the only thing we've done is to let you set a Grafana dependency to say this plugin won't work with any older version of this. That way we won't offer it to an instance. Yeah, it would be nice to know if I go to the 7.4 or 7.37 or whatever the version is, how many people am I cutting off?
Right. Because for the upcoming version, I want to be based on 7.4. So nobody can install it, right? On
right.
Previous users. Also, Marcus, I remember I opened an issue for you for the workflows on with plugin workflows. The way how it works, remember we talked when you run this workflow, you create a new version. And then this version get published, right? The problem is that you have a draft.
Yeah. When I made that change, it's on my list. Thank you for writing it down.
So I'm not sure how to fix it actually, because you still don't have a URL.
Yeah, right? Exactly. My thought was to construct the future URL. It's not going to be it's not going to be valid yet, but once you make that release, it's going to be. So yeah, thank you for reminding me. I've gotten a couple of pull requests with URLs like this to the plugin repository. So it's definitely something I need to look into.
Right.
But yeah, so I'm thinking just instead of because what the workflow does right now is that it pulls it from one of the GitHub actions. It's an output from the create release action, I believe. And instead, I just construct it from the values I have. So that could be could be an alternative.
Because you have a release ID already, so your URL will be consist of that.
Hopefully, yes. That's what I'm betting on.
Okay. Also, I found I changed the change because the change log was fixed in with one of the recent versions. So I updated my change log and updated change log for the plugin same way as the change log done for Grafana, which has one hash for the version. So it didn't pick up as well by the workflow. Because you have two hashes actually. It's kind of very custom, but still.
Yeah.
Something have to be changed.
We should look into unifying, change log formats. I'm not sure what the original. I think that we've been using one format for our enterprise plugins. I think that's where one changelog format comes from, and then we have one for the Grafana project.
Okay, because Grafana project has one hash for the version and 3 hashes for features. Marks.
Yeah. Is that a issue for you right now, or like would you prefer a different? Or are you just curious why it's a difference?
I was surprised. I mean, I kind of updated my changelog and then I run with a release. A release is not something you can test and run all the time, right? So I run it and found, okay, this is a version which is untagged, which something have to be changed, updated, and the changelog it didn't pick up. So I try to follow, because it's a Grafana plugin, I try to follow changelog format of the Grafana itself, and it didn't pick up. So you have to unify.
I think the reason for this is on grafana.com/plugins. If you look at under the tab changelog, I think it just prints the contents of the changelog.md. So you probably want a header, and I think it's just to make the output on grafana.com a little nicer. I think that's just a simple explanation. Yeah.
I mean, it's fine. It works both ways. In any case, you copy paste it later on, can update it. It just, if you do the workflow, it has to be accurate and works, right?
I get, to me, the documentarian in me is kind of hurting when I see multiple single hashes in a markdown file. So I would rather see the Grafana changelog format change, but
when you have this one hash, it kind of make it as a header underlined.
Yes, yes. So there, ideally, ideally you should only have one top level
H1.
header in a markdown file, and that's the single hash.
Right. Okay. Yeah, let's keep 2 hashes. That's fine.
I kind of want you to create an issue for the Grafana repository and suggest it to be changed. I want to watch that. I want to watch that discussion.
I think Diana can
Yeah,
do that, right? She is the one responsible for documentation.
yeah.
Right?
I bet she's out now. Otherwise, she would definitely have commented.
I'm here. I'm just listening in, being a fly on the wall. When
Yeah.
it comes to the plugin documentation, Marcus is the king there. I'm kind of
Yeah,
trying to
we're
direct
talking about
traffic on the rest
we're
of the
talking
docs.
about style guides for Markdown. Should how many single hashes should you have in a Markdown file? Tell me.
As many as you have bullets in your list. We actually have a Grafana Markdown style guide, so I would refer to what we have there.
As it hashtags, or do you mean asterisks?
Oh, okay, hashtags. I'm sorry, I thought you meant like hyphens.
Oh, sorry,
So-
sorry. Yeah, hashtags for headers.
For as many as you need to, you should start with an H1, and then the next down should be H2s, and then the next down should be H3s. You should use headings to break up your document into coherent chunks. There isn't really a rule for it, but I guess if I had to make one up on the fly, it would be add a heading wherever someone might want to link to. But really, headings are to help you break up your document into coherent chunks to help. That helps the reader find the information and to scan your doc. The Google Tech Writing for Engineers course, which I will link right here, has some really good guidance on how to use headings. And if you're interested in improving your technical writing skills, I highly recommend going through their content. It's actually written for engineers, and it covers most of what I am correcting when I go through PRs. So
yeah, it's a really good resource.
So it should be header 1, only 1, right? Single header 1.
correct.
Yes.
There should only ever be one H1 in a document.
Yeah. So because Mikhail, he noted that in our changelog for the Grafana project, there is multiple H1s.
I am not responsible for that one, and yep, that is a big problem. This is why we
Yes,
don't.
it's for every version. There is H1.
Yeah.
There's your answer.
Yes, a deep sigh and a cringe of pain as I sip my tea.
Thank you
Cool.
for
Well,
the technical writing course. I'll take a look at it.
I
Yeah, I'll
highly
take a look
recommend
too.
it. It's specifically made for engineers, so that aren't tech writers by profession, but it's like if you're a developer and you want to start writing better documentation, that's the target audience, and it's a really well written course or class. So we have 1 minute left. Thank you all for joining, and thank you for all the great questions. I have a ton of feedback here that I will get back to the team with. Yeah, hope you got some answers. I enjoyed it.
Thanks, Marcus.
Thank you
Yes,
all.
Thank you, Marcus.
Good
Thank you.
seeing you all.
Good seeing you. Bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye.